Jeff Bezos and his wife Mackenzie are divorcing, and I don't care. Most people shouldn't care. But there is a point to this story because after Jeff Bezos and his wife came out to the public and said that they were separating and that they're still friends and it's still amicable, the National Enquirer, which remember, longtime friends of Donald Trump, said that they were about to break the story. So how did they let the world know that they were about to break the story? Well, they published this. During a blockbuster 4-month investigation, the Enquirer tracked Bezos, the secret lover Sanchez, her name's Lauren Sanchez, across 5 states and 40,000 miles, tailed them in private jets, swanky limos, helicopter rides, romantic hikes, 5-star hotel hideaways, intimate dinner dates, and quality time in hidden love nests. That's really creepy. Like it's creepy. It's creepy that people do that for a living. I think it's called stalking, right? Like
they're supposed to be budget, though. I mean, if you're going with that, the Enquirer is making way too much money.
So yeah. Let's note a couple of things. First of all, I love the way that they threw 5-star hotels in there. He's the richest man in the world.
Yeah.
It'd be weird if he's like, let's go to a 3-star motel.
Some people are into that though. Some people are like, yeah, it's dirty and gritty.
Yeah, I'm okay. Right. It might be literally dirty, but that's a whole other thing. Believe me, brother, I've been there. Not the fair part, the hotels. Okay, so there's important political ramifications in a second, but first let's note the most important and obvious irony. The National Enquirer also tracked Donald Trump's affairs, but then spent money to make sure that they never saw the light of day. They killed those stories. They bought them to kill them. Now, Jeff Bezos, a political opponent of Donald Trump says it all the time. Oh, Bezos is the fake news. He owns the Washington Post. Of course, Trump gets it wrong. He says Amazon does. No, Bezos personally owns the Washington Post, not Amazon. Amazon does not own the Washington Post. Okay, anyway, so now a political opponent of Donald Trump, and look at that. All of a sudden, National Enquirer spends a lot of money to publish that story. So now, look, the former head of the National Enquirer is now turned evidence against Trump, so it is a little bit complicated in that sense. And I don't know if they're still doing him favors, but at a bare minimum, it's noteworthy to point out that one guy, they find out the story and pay money to cover it up, and the other guy they expose immediately. So it's almost as if you shouldn't trust the National Enquirer.
But you know what, I said it tongue in cheek about the budget they would have. But I mean, even in that scenario where they were killing some of the sort of Trump affair stories or dirt on Trump stories, they were receiving money, through some of Trump's people. So I mean, it's not out of the realm to think of this sort of moving against Bezos as well, and them having those extra funds for that investigation of his private life through some other means.
And it's definitely feasible that media gets used on a regular basis as a tool against political opponents. It happens all the time. It happens in mainstream media outlets as well. I mean, this is a tabloid, but still, it has some power. Now, with that said, Trump was asked about the Bezos divorce, and he seemed pretty giddy about it.
And what do you react to? Would you approve of Jeff Bezos' divorce and his affair?
Well, I wish him luck.
That's it?
I wish him luck. It's going to be a beauty.
Yeah, well, to be fair, he is an expert on the field.
Yeah.
Having gotten divorced 2 times, he is an expert. And so now, to Anna's earlier point, when you go after an opponent, sometimes what they'll do in political campaigns, almost all the time actually, is if it's a big enough campaign, is opposition research. So it's called Oppo research, and so is the National Enquirer still doing Oppo research for Donald Trump? Now remember, it wasn't just spiking the stories that hurt Donald Trump. They also claimed, and this is my favorite, this is like more outrageous and unbelievable than a 3-headed alien that they've printed. They claimed during the primaries that Ted Cruz had 5 mistresses. Okay.
Yeah, no one believes that.
Yeah, that's the most unbelievable story ever. So 5 mistresses. Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz. Anyway, it's more likely that he's a Zodiac killer. Anyway, so in this case, it appears it's true, but it's opposition research nonetheless. What's important for you guys to understand is context. Why did they target Bezos? Because my thesis is that you go after these powerful guys, you could find dirt on almost any of them. So the only question is, who do you choose to target and spend this kind of money investigating? If you did it for, let's say, conservative Republican donors, my God, the treasure trove that you would find. But nobody ever does that because they're untouchable. Now, in this case, it's a good position for us to be in because we're principled. Jeff Bezos is not a liberal by any stretch of the imagination. And in fact, we often oppose him on policy grounds. And furthermore, we just celebrated Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna doing an act called the Stop Bezos Act. And it forced Bezos to actually pay $15 an hour for his workers at Amazon. So we're not political allies of Jeff Bezos, but they clearly targeted him in a way that was malicious and I think unfair, and it went into his private life. Why do we care about Jeff Bezos' private life? How does that affect policy at all? It doesn't.
Well, except for the fact that he said things that pissed off the Trump administration. I mean, through the Washington Post, but even beyond the Washington Post, the adversarial sort of relationship and that sort of competitive, who's bigger in whatever department than the other man thing, that is something that Trump has had with Bezos throughout this whole time. Even when he was talking, and it was one of the issues with Amazon, actually, ironically, that Trump sort of agreed, but not on the same principles of paying workers with Bernie Sanders, because effectively, he didn't like how Amazon was running itself as a monopoly, but mostly he didn't like Bezos.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I'm gonna say something a little dangerous here, but.
Oh, dangerous.
Yeah. So they might have messed with the wrong guy here. I don't want Bezos going around spending his money to do political hatchet jobs on others either, right? But if somebody came for me, and I'm the richest guy in the world, I can guarantee you that there would be retribution. So I'd be like, oh no, you wanna mess with me? You got private investigators? I got private investigators. Right. So if I'm Bezos and they did this hatchet job on me, I would unleash an army of private investigators like they have never seen before. So I hope he teaches them a lesson, but that we can't control. On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.